Hey gang, Greta Schulz, author of To Sell Is Not to Sell and founder of Schulz Business Solutions. Today, I wanted to put together for you the top 8 sales challenges that I hear and what to do about them. You know, as I travel around the country and I speak to different people, different groups, and some people are in the sales business or in a sales force of a company. Some people are independent entrepreneurs that have to build their business. Some people are professionals like attorneys and CPAs and engineers. We all have the same issues. The issue is, how do we build our business? And I will tell you, I know that a lot of us feel, well, my business is very different, but I can tell you that across the board, we almost all have the same issues. And today I want to review the top 8 issues that I hear most often, and I want to give you some ideas of what to do with them. So I'm going to start with number 8. Number 8 is selling cycle is too long. I hear this a lot. And people say, you know, I can sell. Sometimes it just takes a really long time, sometimes 6 months or a year. You know, first of all, your selling cycle in most cases shouldn't take that long. And I guess it depends on when you consider the selling cycle starting. Sometimes we consider building relationships the beginning of the selling cycle. Well, building relationships is just part of getting in front of someone. To me, the selling cycle starts when there is a potential need and a potential conversation about the need. Selling cycle doesn't start when you just get to know somebody and maybe you meet with them a couple of times about something insignificant. They have no need, you have no need. That's not the selling cycle. It starts when the two of you have at least initially some connection in what they're looking for and what you do. And it may not be a fit still, but at least it's the beginning of the sale. The other thing about sales call being too long, it's often too long because we allow it to be. You know, often somebody will sit and talk to somebody and they'll say, okay, sounds good, send me something. Or call me in a couple of weeks. Or call me after the holidays. Or, whatever. They'll give a lot of things. Now, to me, that is a red flag. And when you have a process for selling, you learn what to pick up. And I'm telling you, that is a red flag to me. So number one, it's very important to find out what the clear next step is every single time. And let me explain to you what I mean by clear next step. Clear next step is not just another appointment. A clear next step is an agreed upon time and date that the both of you agree you want to set in a calendar. And the agenda of what's going to happen when you do. Very, very important. So a clear next step has a date, a time, and an agenda. When you set a clear next step or attempt to set one and you say to somebody, why don't we open up our calendar so we can get to the next step here? So, we want to do this next. Why don't we open up our calendar so we can do that? And you set it maybe, what does next week look like for you? Or maybe 2 weeks out. First of all, a red flag is when they won't do that. Oh, just give me a call. Just email me some dates and times. You want to see if they can get on their calendar right then. If they don't, it could be that it's not important enough. The other thing that is a good clue for you is that if they try to set that clear next step too far out, that's another clue. For example, you're sitting talking to somebody and you talk about whatever their needs are and you say, well, it sounds like maybe we should continue this conversation. And they say, yeah, it sounds good. Why don't we look at the end of November and it's September? Okay. When somebody sets it that far out, that is a clue to you that the priority isn't there. It's just not that important. And if it's not that important, not only will your selling cycle be long, you'll probably get some cancellations on your appointments. Because people, if they find it's of some level of importance, but I'm not saying they're going to die if they don't buy your product or service, but some level of importance and they want to continue discussing it, you should be able to set it on a calendar. And for me, if it's more than a week or 2 out, I got a little red flag and I will say to them, gosh, that's kind of far out. We talked about how important this was. I'm confused. Are you sure you want to make it that far out? I'm going to test that a little bit. And you test it in your own words and in your own way, but it's very important to do that because your selling cycle is going to lengthen if you allow it to. The other reason you have a long selling cycle is that you really aren't getting to the true needs. You're not getting to the true hot buttons, the true pain of what's really going on. Why do they really want to do this? People will set close enough appointments, they will make decisions if something is necessary. They won't if something is nice. So some of the reasons that our selling cycle is too long is because it would be nice if they had your product or service, but it isn't necessary. And your job is to ask enough questions to uncover if it is necessary. If it's not, that's fine. You can bring it to a no and walk away, and then put that on your tickler system for down the road. But you don't want to keep bugging them if they don't believe it's important. You have to go back to the drawing board and find out what the real issue is that you can solve, and if you don't solve it, what happens? So that's number 8. Number 7 is think it over too often. Too many stalls. Well, think it over is the number 1 problem we have in sales, in my opinion. Even worse than any of the other things we're talking about. To me, think it over is the number 1 problem because it's that gray area. We don't really know what it means. So it's not a no, where you know exactly where you stand, and it's not a yes, and it's not even a clear next step of the next meeting. It's just that in between. Let me think about it. I'll think about it overnight. Give me a week. Send me something. Call me back. Give me references. Whatever it is, think it over is an excuse most of the time. So you have to take think it over off the table. And how do you do that? Well, you have to make sure that every time you talk to someone, either on the phone or in person, you get one of 3 things. You get either a yes, a no, or a clear next step. And we talked about what a clear next step is. If you don't get one of those 3, then you're going to have a think it over and you're just going to be chasing. That's a very dangerous place to be because the more time you spend chasing somebody, psychologically, it's not good for you. If you're in the business development business, your head won't be in the game. So that's a problem. And more importantly, you spend so much time following up on people that you think are prospects, but they really aren't. It's just kind of busy work that you're doing, and you're not proactively out there doing some real significant work to try to bring in people that are wanting to buy your services. So think it over is a real issue, and we've got to get that off the table. The next one, number 6, is no time management system. I hear this all the time. If I just had more time, I really need a time management system. Well, let me tell you guys something. There is no such thing as time management. I swear, no such thing. 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, everybody's got it. But there is priority management. And what's interesting is we find time for the things that we need to find time for. For example, we find time for things that have deadlines and the part of our job that we like. If something has a deadline, whether it's with a customer or a boss or a prospect, we find time for that particular thing. We also find time for the parts of our job that we're good at and that we enjoy. We will spend more time doing that than doing the things that we don't like, because we enjoy what it is that we do. We have passion about what it is that we do, whatever that is, whether it's consulting, whatever it is for you, accounting. And the last thing you wanted to do was become an accountant so you could go out and sell accounting services. You did it because that's the part of the job that you like. So that's the discrepancy there, and that's what makes it difficult. So time management really isn't about managing time, it's about managing priorities. So my recommendation is figure out what your mix of prospecting is, and that's one of the things that I work on quite a bit with my clients is what are the things that you do every day, every week, every month to build your business. And if you work in your business as well as on your business, you're not going to put all day every day into this, but what are you going to put into it? And is it a priority over other things? So that's something that you really need to be accountable for and you need to be doing on a regular basis. Very, very important. Number 5 is too much telling. You know, in sales, I know we've probably heard telling isn't selling and, you shouldn't tell, you should ask questions, but no one's really ever taught us what to ask, except for maybe those leading questions like, wouldn't it be helpful to you if I could show you a way to save money? Or, those are just stupid questions and they're very salesy and I don't like them. But no one really taught us what kind of questions to ask. So what we tend to do is when somebody asks about our business, what makes us different, tell us about you, and we list out our features and benefits of all the things that we do. Doesn't matter. Even the benefits don't matter. Because if the benefits don't matter to that person and you've already significantly got them to admit that those are the issues that they're having, benefits don't matter either. So what's so important is that we ask not just questions, but really good questions. One of the things we work on a lot is how are we developing questions? Have we done our homework on this particular prospect? What do we see as potentially their issues? What questions are we developing? And questions need to be developed that are open-ended but thought-provoking. For example, a good question, excuse me, a good question might be, if you had the ability to blank, how might that change your business? If you had more time to do this, what would you do with that? Or share with me what would happen if. You know, it's those kind of questions that you ask, and the person in front of you should go, and kind of think about it for a minute before they answer it. When they start doing that, you're beginning to get in a little deeper. Now, when you get that answer, you still don't answer it right away with what you can do. There's some other questions that are underneath that really help you get to the part where they make decisions. You know, there truly is a part on the brain that helps people make decisions. There's a place on the brain that helps them do that. You have to get that deep through questions. But at least to start out with some of those general, share with me, what are your thoughts on, what are your feelings on questions are going to help you. But just so you know, the more you tell, the less they are not going to make a decision, and you'll get to think it over. People don't make decisions by what you tell them. Now, number 4, not getting enough good referrals from your existing clients. Doesn't make any sense, right? They love you, and you know they love you, but you don't get a lot of referrals from them. Well, there's 2 reasons why we don't get more referrals. And most of you know what the reason is. The number 1 reason. We don't ask. Which is so funny because we all know we have to ask for referrals, but we don't. The problem is if we do ask for referrals, we say something like, do you know anybody else who could use our services? Do you know anybody else who needs blah, blah, blah? And I'll tell you, I don't know a lot of people, we'll go back to my accountant example, I don't know a lot of people who go, boy, I need a new accountant, what should I do? That's something that I don't hear very often. But what do I hear? I might hear somebody say, boy, I paid a lot of taxes this year, or I wasn't prepared early enough and now I've got a big tax bill, or I'm trying to get a couple of questions answered and I can never reach my accountant, something. And if you're in the accounting business, you know what those questions are better than I do. The point is though, the second part of why we don't get more referrals is we don't ask properly. We need to be able to say to somebody, if someone says this, or if you hear this, that's a good referral for me. You know, if you hear someone say something, or if you see something, you know yourself, you can say, oh, I can help that person. So you have to teach those things to others when you're asking for referrals. They're called triggers. You have to plant triggers in people's minds. So when they see or hear those things, they immediately think of you. That's how the brain works. So you have to put things into people's mind that make them think of you. That's what's significantly important about getting referrals. And I have a whole, series just on referrals and networking and things like that. Number 3 in the challenges is inability to get to the decision maker. Well, this is so funny because every time somebody asks me about getting to a decision maker, they almost always say to me, Greta, what do I leave on a voicemail to get somebody to call me back? If I had that kind of magic dust, we wouldn't be here today. I would be in Hawaii on the beach. There is no magic dust. There is nothing you can do to put on a voicemail that will automatically make somebody call you back. There are some things that I think are better than others, but at the end of the day, if you want to get to a decision maker, you have got to find out who else can introduce you. That's right. We've got to get introduced because in the cases in your business where you've gotten a referral, it's almost always better for you to have an opportunity to close that than something you did completely cold. So how do we do more of those? Well, there's a specific process in doing that. And getting to the decision maker is very important. For example, let's say you call on small business owners in Cincinnati. Let's say you call on accounting firms in West Palm Beach. Let's say you call on hospital administrators nationwide. It doesn't make any difference, but whoever you call on, and you may have different avenues that you call on for different products or services, each one of those is what I call a pillar. And you have to identify within that pillar who else is talking to those people, who else has their ear. Who's selling to them? Who is meeting with them? Who's working with them? Who are the people that have that person's ear? And that is a person who can get you connected with them. Now, that's called a strategic alliance. And your strategic alliance building, your building of your strategic alliances is more important than anything else you do in prospecting. I build my entire business on strategic alliances. People that do not compete with me, have possibly similar businesses, or just call on the same people in one or more of my pillars. So who are those people that already have the ear of the people you're trying to get in front of? And who are the ones that are liked, trusted, and if they called you, you would say, oh, I'm going to take that call because it's John Jones. That's who you need to be, and that's who you need to be building strategic alliances with. It is huge today. It is the way business grows today. You know, after this economy, things have really shifted. And if you don't learn how to build your business on referrals and strategic alliances, you're going to be in the cold call black hole. And I will tell you, cold calling can be okay. But if that's all you're doing, it's burnout and you're going to go broke. So it's very, very important to make sure that you do that. Number 2, prospects love your product or service, but they say they don't have any money. I hear that all the time. Well, you know, the economy's tough and they really love what we have, but they just don't have any money. Hint, you didn't get them to understand the value of what you've got. Now, a couple things about value. Number 1, value only comes from the person that sits across from you or is on the phone. You cannot tell anyone what your value is, because the only value that matters is what they deem value. Don't assume you know what it is because you work with other people like them. Value is what comes from what they decide. And people, no matter how much money they have, even if they have less today and they're much more particular about how they spend it, people will move money from here to here if they see the value of doing that. And you can't teach them the value. The questions that you ask will get them to self-realize the value that you bring. Let me say it again. The questions that you ask will get them to realize the value that you bring. Telling isn't selling, but that won't help you. So people will find money if what you have makes sense. And the excuse of, I really wish I could do it, I love what you have, we really don't have money, 99% of the time, that is an excuse. Because we find money for the things that we want and feel is going to solve our pain. So it's very important to understand that. If you may be watching this saying, well, she doesn't understand, in my business it's different. I'm telling you, there's gray hair under here, and I've been around a while. Do not fall into that category. If somebody says they don't have money, they are giving you an excuse because you haven't come up with enough value that they see. They haven't uncovered enough value from the questions you've asked. Or maybe they're just not a fit. But that's usually not the reason, almost all the time. And the last one, the very last thing that I feel like is the real sales challenge is not having a process for selling. You know, when I first started out in sales, I worked for Xerox. Terrific company. They talked to lots and lots of people. I was in college. They interviewed I don't know how many for these particular positions. I think it was like 50 or 60 people, and there was only 8 of us. And we were all very excited to get hired. And so when I was hired, they had a very significant sales training program. And you know what? I paid somewhat attention to it, but I knew that I was going to be able to sell because I had a great personality. Everybody liked me. I could convince anybody of anything. So I went out there and did my thing, and I didn't pay a lot of attention to what they were telling me. 6 months in, the general manager of Xerox sat me down, of our branch at Xerox, sat me down and said, Greta, you are lagging behind badly. I had never in my life lagged behind on anything. And he said, how well do you know this process that we taught you? And I kind of faked my way through it. He said, you've got 60 days to pick it up. And let me tell you what, that scared the heck out of me. I mean, I had just gotten out of college, I had this job, I had a department, a car, all the other stuff, and I was really scared. So I hit those books hard, and I watched everything that they told me to watch, and I listened, and I went with some of the successful people, and I watched what they did. And you know what? It turned me around. It was very significant that there's a process for selling as well. Now, Is your personality part of that? You know, it is, but I will tell you that if you think you're going to be in sales because everybody likes you and you're really nice and you're really outgoing, you are mistaken. Some of the best salespeople out there are laid back, are more quiet, but are really good listeners and really good matchers. They match what you need with what they have. That's what people do. So I will tell you that if you don't have a process for selling, you need to get one. If you want to check out ours, fantastic. Go to my website and check it out. But I'm telling you, if you don't have a process, your prospects will, and they will take you along the ride of theirs. And you won't even know what happened. And you'll believe the things that they say, and you'll believe that things are coming along, and I don't have money right now, call me down the road. You'll believe all that because you don't have a process to sell against it. And today, you can't afford not to. So, those are the 8 things. I hope you got some good tips out of them. I hope you really enjoyed it. Look for the next tips that we've got, and I'll share them.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Sasser, and I work for 352 Media Group. I started my career as an engineer, specifically a programmer. But with some amazing support and training from Greta, she's helped transition me into a full-time sales capacity. Some of the early challenges that I had making that transition was trying to talk to the wrong people and give them way too much information. Greta helped me get past these gatekeepers, helped me get in front of the CMOs and CEOs who make those decisions, and taught me how to give them the information that they're looking for. That training, in conjunction with her ongoing support of being available through email, I can pick up a phone call and ask her a technical question, and coming in and doing on-site training where it really helps refine our approach has just been amazing. With those techniques and help, I've been able to reach my sales goals last year, and hopefully I'll be the 3rd guy in company history ever to reach $1 million this year. Thank you so much, Greta.